Welcome to the Big Time Strength Podcast, featuring small school strength coaches making the big time where they're at. I am your host, Gage Rozier. Today's episode is sponsored by TeamBuildr. TeamBuildr provides strength conditioning software to athletics programs around the country. Whether you write your own programs or want access to over 100 templates, TeamBuildr can make your program more efficient, more accountable, and smarter when it comes to measuring your team's effort in the weight room. Visit their website and start a 14-day free trial at teambuildr.com. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Hey guys, welcome to the Big Time Strength Podcast. This week I am excited to bring to you Coach E.J. Kreis, the head strength conditioning coach at Chadron State College. And this was a great talk. I really enjoyed, his thoughts on the culture of the program there at Chadron State, and he gave a lot of great resources and talked about the future of his program. And it was really interesting as well as Coach is the son of a legend in our field, Coach Doc Kreis, who spent years in the collegiate sector and was recognized by the CSCCA as a legend in our field. So it was really cool to talk to Coach about just growing up in that environment, what he learned from that, and man, he's on fire for strength conditioning. So it was really great to talk to him. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. For today in our resource review, I'm going to cover one that's probably very well known, and I think probably a lot of you have read it, and it's the case for single limb training. By Coach Mike Boyle. You can find it on strengthcoach.com. I will put a link in the show notes as well. So I digged into this, and I just the whole bilateral single leg debate is very fascinating to me. Right now, I've got some friends of mine that are really going off the back squat train and moving towards more single leg stuff, which I think is great. And I see all the reasons for it, but I'm still just trying to do my research and figure out if it's good for me and my training system and our athletes. So I was reading this and some things clicked. So I want to share just a couple things from the article. Again, I'm sure most of you have read it before. If you're not, it's a good article. And then I want to share a story that just something that clicked for me. So he talks about when we stand on one leg, we gauge the lateral subsystem. So that's the glute med, the adductors, and the QL. And when we do that squat bilaterally, those the subsystem are activated as stabilizers, but just as movers. But when you have to go to a single leg, they are activated as stabilizers, which is their main role, and they have to perform that role. So one thing that really jumped out to me here was, we've done a lot of single leg stuff in my program. We do the split squats and lunges and step ups and all that, and we do a true unsupported single leg as well. So we'll do a single leg squat down to a box and then hopefully try to eventually remove the box. But generally, our athletes just haven't gotten good enough to where we've gotten to that point. And reading through this, I think that's something that we need to change because something in here just clicked, and he talks about how single leg supported exercises don't necessarily transfer to single leg unsupported because of that subsystem is not truly activated. Because if there's another foot on the ground, you're too stable, and they're again working as movers, but they're not necessarily working as stabilizers. So I want to talk a little bit about a story or some experience I had. We just assessed our athletes in the fall. Some of the teams kind of starting over again, football and volleyball after their seasons. And we did a single leg squat, a true single leg squat. So they're up on a box and they're squatting down as deep as they can. And we're watching for valgus and a couple other things. And it's just, they were terrible. And, I thought, man, we do a lot of single leg stuff, and I couldn't quite put my finger on it, and when I read this, it clicked. So, when we're doing all the split squats and stuff that we normally had done in our single leg work here, we're not activating those stabilizers in the stabilization role. And that's very important for single leg strength and injury prevention, and it just clicked. Like, we're not doing enough of that. So in the spring here, we made a change, and we're going to do a lot of single leg unsupported work. Working through our progression a little bit, have our athletes get better at it. We're going to retest here, after a few weeks and see if we're making improvements down that road. But again, this might be completely obvious to everybody else, but when I just read this, it just clicked for me. Something I learned from this article. I didn't cover much of it, guys. I apologize for that. But if you're interested in reading it, please check it out. It's a lot of good stuff. And, Coach Mike Boyle might be, kind of controversial in some of his things, I guess. But, I mean, he always backs it up with evidence and what a reason for why he's doing things. So I really appreciate his work. All right, guys. I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. Again, Coach E.J. Kreis is doing big things, and he brings the energy on this one. So hope you enjoy. We'll see you next week. Hey, Coach Kreis, I really appreciate you coming on the Big Time Strength podcast with us. Get us started by telling us a little about your background and what you're doing there at Chadron State.
Absolutely, Coach Roser. I can't thank you enough for having me on here today. Currently here at Chadron State College, located in Chadron, Nebraska, located also in the upper northwest corner of the great state of Nebraska with it. I played college football at Western State Colorado University, now called Western Colorado. Played football there for my 5 years. When I finished up my collegiate experience after helping out over there, I was very fortunate that I applied and received a graduate assistant opportunity at Chadron State College, who competed inside the same conference actually. And I was the first graduate assistant there, which was a great experience. And throughout the work and trying to do everything you can right, like everybody does, I had the opportunity to go up a little bit, became the first coaching assistant. After that, finishing my master's in 2016, I then had the opportunity to interview and obtain the head strength conditioning job. And I've been here ever since and going on finishing up year number 5, getting ready to start number 6 coming up.
So I was really interested. I'm really interested to find out. Coaches start the program from scratch. What were some of those first steps when you received the GA spot or when you got the head spot? What were some of those first steps you really tried to lock down to make the program what it is now?
Absolutely. I think that, first of all, ultimately, I believe with the athletes we're working with in this profession, ultimately across every sport, these athletes are going to be more of a reflection of the head coach that brought them here than we are just as strength coaches. And I think that I was very lucky that though I was the first strength coach coming in here to Chadron, I came into an institution that had amazing culture across athletics. And when I came in to start with, the very first team I worked with was football. They had a great culture. They had a culture of winning, the expectations, and the standard was the standard, and it never went away. So with that, I got the opportunity to come into a team, and it was kind of eye-opening to see that this is how a team is ran, this is how a team wins, this is what it looks like when you do it correctly year-round. So from that experience, I was then able to start working with multiple other teams right after that I started with men's basketball, women's volleyball, moved on to track and field, and then ultimately had everybody under my tutelage with it. And when you start with the culture side of things, I think that you have to understand the athletes that you're working with and then go from there. Because you might have all of these different plans and have a great expectations of how you want to take that program. But ultimately, if it's not in line with the sport head coach or the athletic department's goal, then you're going to run into some barriers and run into some problems. So I think that right away, I think that although we are labeled as strength and conditioning coaches, we're ultimately just masters of relationships and being great at wearing different hats within those relationships. So I think it started with the coaches and being on board through our meetings and making sure we understood what both of us wanted from our relationship together, how we wanted the weight room to be viewed, applied, and used year-round for their athletes. And from there, just trying to make sure that we ultimately used all the decision-making we did based upon the scientific evidence and trying to make sure we're using this for sport, event, or position-specific performance and not trying to turn these athletes into weightlifters. Because I don't know about on your end, Coach, but since I've been here, I've never had the chance to give out a front squat scholarship. So ultimately, we're trying to make sure we have these kids are here to play some ball, and we want to make sure we enhance those abilities that can happen out there on the court, on the field, or in their area of competition.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love how you started it with just establish those relationships first, and it all starts with that. I think that's a huge point.
Absolutely. I think, athletes know when you're real. People know when you're real. And when you try to be something you're not or present something that you're not authentic with, people see right through it. So it's being yourself and owning it and enjoying all the days that we do get to come in and work with these athletes.
Yep, absolutely. And, Coach, I want to go back to your background just a little bit because, reaching out to you, I learned that your dad is a legend in this industry and just was recognized last year or 2 years ago by the CSCCA as a legend. And so I'm just curious, what did you learn from your father, and how was it growing up just in the environment? I'm sure you're around strength conditioning your whole life. So maybe expand a little bit on that. How was that? What did you learn from your father, and so on?
Absolutely. I mean, I don't know how much time we have here on this cast, but I'll try to phrase it down kind of best I can. But without a doubt, my father is the biggest influence on my professional career, athletic career, on my life. The guy's my mentor. He's everything I look up to. And I absolutely had a different childhood growing up. I think a lot of people can say or phrase that, hey, I grew up in a gym. And that may be meaning they had a home gym or they went with their dad a lot to the gym. But, no, I literally grew up in the gym. And that originally I'm a Nashville, Tennessee native. My father has been the head strength coach at Vanderbilt for 11 years, UCLA for 5, private sector, Olympic things after that. So he's kind of been all over and worn a lot of different hats at a much bigger level than the ones that we're working at right now. So I had a very unique experience growing up. In that a normal morning, I went to the weight room with my dad for that early 6 a.m. group. So we'd get there at 4:30, 5 in the morning. I'd have a little bed in his office. I'd go to bed, and the first thing I hear to wake up to is usually bars hitting the ground. So that was kind of like the alarm clock. All right, that's 6 a.m. That's the first group of the day. So I had a very unique experience, growing up within college athletics, that as soon as I woke up out of the office, I looked out at a Division I football program, Division I volleyball program, that I saw very high-level athletes right away from the moment I opened up my eyes. And then from there, I think it also established a lot of nutritional habits, that my dad didn't have, a locker in his office that was full of a Pop-Tart or a Hot Pocket or a Dorito. We had 3 different flavor of Power Bars. Heck yeah, 3 different flavors. And on top of that, it was the Medtrex protein and whole foods and not food-like products. So right away, that kind of started shaping what I saw from athletics from a different perspective maybe than from just watching it on TV. So to try to also phrase maybe what I've learned from them, it's hard to just detail one of those things. That when I talked with recruits, when I talk with our athletes, one of the things I'm proud to be able to sell is how I grew up. And I was able to watch his program go through great athletes. And it's absolutely the athletes' work that got these things done. But the program with those athletes produced Big 12 champions, national champions, Pac-12 champions, Pac-12 national champions. So now I know within our profession, I just get to be a little bit more recent in age with it and get to put technology spin with a little new age era, but we're absolutely going to use some old school methods that we know are proven and we know that work.
I mean, that's huge. I mean, that's such an awesome experience you had, and me being a new father, I kind of dream of my son doing the same. Having that same kind of life you had growing up and learning those same traits. So appreciate you sharing that, Coach.
Oh, absolutely.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about, what is kind of the mission statement of your program, and what are some of those core values that really drive what you're doing there at Chadron?
Yeah, absolutely. Overall, within our core values, some of them stem from somebody I like a lot within looking at somewhat as a mentor and looking at the things they do and trying to have a similar style of program. I don't know if you're familiar with Ryan Horn at Wake Forest. I've never had the opportunity to shake his hand in real life, but the era that we're in, the social media era, is a real thing.
Right.
And I think that within our profession, even we get the opportunity to see different programs, meet coaches online, and communicate through that well before conference happens. So with that, I've used some of the ones that he's put out there and then kind of detailed them and made them a little more specific to our institution and what we're working with. But in terms of core values, it's what we tell our staff the very first day within our meeting, is that they reflect what you project. And that goes from how we treat the athletes to a senior to a freshman to everybody in between. That's a constant for us. Another one is that we get what we tolerate and emphasize. The third one being that there is no culture without consequences. And for us, the standard is the standard. And that doesn't matter if you were a 4-star, 1-star, preferred walk-on, true walk-on, high scholarship, Rivals website ranked you somewhere. It doesn't matter where you come in. Our culture and our standard, that remains the same for us. The fourth one for us is doing the simple things savagely well. And that's a great way, I think, to phrase that. The basics are never going to get us, and we are going to do those simple things savagely well. And then from there, we're going to progress and make sure that we put the best athletes out there for success that we possibly can. Fifth one after that is going to be trust, accountability, consistency, and love. And that love is not conditional or situated. And the last one for us is being relentlessly positive, unapologetically demanding, and not demeaning. And that's a way that we view our relationship. And if you deliver a message to an athlete, that's how we expect that to be delivered, being relentlessly positive, unapologetically demanding, but not demeaning with it. Branching off of that, to be a little vague on it, our strength and conditioning philosophy, overall, I believe that I think a lot of them are pretty similar within our field. But for us here at Chadron State, the ultimate goal of the strength and conditioning department is to minimize risk for all athletes while increasing sport, position, and event performance. And then kind of branching off of that a little bit, each aspect of our training is either a systematic or sequential and progressive approach. So that means for us, everything's going to go easy to hard, simple to complex. And throughout each of those training cycles, I still got you there, Coach?
Yeah, you still there, Coach? Sorry, cut out on me for a second.
Oh, you're okay. Any of that I need to go back through on you?
No, you go for it. Pick up where you're at.
Other one than that, just kind of branching off with it, is that, the primary goal within our profession is to contribute to a work environment that encourages knowledge, respect, development, and engaging within a diverse community. I think overall, everyone has a version of some type of similar mission statement, philosophy, core values, and hopefully those are specific to each institution and their strengths.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think those core values you kind of listed there at the start, I mean, those are awesome. And if you can if that's driving your culture and your behavior and you're getting your athletes to buy into that, they're going to do, a lot of awesome things, and you're going to have a very high performing culture. So, Coach, I'm all in on what you're saying there. So let's talk a little bit about your training philosophy. It sounds like you're all about the basics and getting and really, savagely good at the basics. So can you expand on that a little bit?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Overall, within our program, I don't think that we use a cookie cutter model across anybody's program or any of our sports that we use. And by phrasing that as cookie cutter model, what that means to me is that we don't say, welcome to Chadron State, here's the strengths program, or you are a football player, here's the strengths packet. What we're really trying to do is break that down into the individual performance to be the best that we can there. And that comes down into exercise selection, maybe doing things a little bit differently across different teams, having a different type of program to excel for everybody that you're training from that relationship standpoint, and really just trying to make sure that you have a plan, and with that plan, you are engaged through it. And I think that with the buy-in aspect of it is you can believe everything thoroughly and believe that you've done it to the best of the ability, the best it. Until the athletes have that same trust in you, you're never going to get to that ultimate goal. Because it's one thing when we believe in the athletes. It's a whole nother when the athletes start to believe in us.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm 100% with you. What are some programming methods, tools, tactics you've been using, you've had a lot of success with?
Methodology-wise, I think that our program across most of the sport we're working with, we absolutely are using a combination of the triphasic and west side conjugate method. And neither one is followed to a T from what those programs might look like on paper, but more for us is we use both of those programs along with a small amount of linear periodization to try to make sure we kind of microdose each of those to give what we hope to be the best result, best training program for every team that we work with.
Yeah, I'm always interested on how coaches can get creative with using all these great programs and methodologies out there, and it's just an art, right? Trying to balance all those things and making sure it still makes sense is something that
absolutely.
I've struggled with a little bit. I start throwing in 4 different methodologies and it just doesn't make any sense anymore. Then I was like, all right, I gotta go back and be simple again. I don't know if you've ever been in that boat before either. So
Oh, I absolutely have. And with it, I mean, it kind of sounds like we're in a similar spot in that you're trying to find the program that works with your athletes, and then you're not trying to reinvent the wheel along the way.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is, for myself, I don't believe we're successful across any of our programs because I have this secret lift or these secret exercises I keep on a private Excel sheet.
Right.
And that goes back to doing the simple things savagely well. That we're not successful because we did the Instagram special of a single leg kettlebell overarm overhead BOSU squat. I mean, we're going to make sure we hinge, press, pull, and we do those things to the best of our ability with the absolute optimal technique.
Yeah, and I've told this story in this podcast before, but I think one of the biggest mistakes I made early in my head strength coach career is I kept trying to just throw different variations at our athletes just, to keep it new and keep it fresh. And it wasn't trying to impress them by any means, but, I got way too far down that rabbit hole. And then I finally just decided, what, we need to go back to just getting really good at what you just said. Let's squat, let's hinge, let's push, let's pull, and that's the best success we've had is when we started going back to the basics. It's brilliant.
I fully agree with you there. I think all of us at some level have been through one of those scenarios that we've all had to revert back to a block zero or going back to the basics of technique. And I don't think it's ever wrong to do that. And I just think that anybody is lying if they told you, no, I've never had to revert back. My progression's perfect.
Right. All right, Coach, so what is your vision for your program in the next 5 years? What's up next?
That's a good question because this is my 5th year right now. So I just got through the first 3 to 5 year vision, and I'm happy and proud to say I do think that I'm along the lines of where we hope to be, both for myself professionally and working with these athletes also. Looking forward for the next 5 years, I think that we're looking for success among all of our programs. I think that right now, overall, we have an athletic director and school president in place that truly believe in the athletic department, and they want to drive it to be as successful as it can possibly be. And with that, I think that hopefully we can get all of the individual teams to have a great buy-in of culture and energy and try to find the success that they deserve in their competition through the work that we see them all put in. And I'm sure you've experienced that also, that you see athletes, you see teams, and they are great in the weight room, and they do everything right, and they have great energy, but then they just might not have the success that they deserve out there in their competition field. So I think that if we could find a way to pair those together, I think that ultimately that would be one of my biggest achievements. Other than that, I think that we hope to continue to grow and expand a little bit within our weight room. I'm very fortunate here at Chadron State to have the facilities that we do. And within the recent year, more specifically the recent few months, we've had a very big push for our athletic nutrition center. And we're hoping that we can get even more funding coming in, even more donations and fundraising for it, and try to make that one of the best that we can in Division II.
Well, it goes back to what you learned from your dad. That nutrition's huge, and that's one way you're making the big time where you're at right there. You saw at the D1 level with growing up and then trying to push for it more at Chadron. That's big time stuff.
Yeah, it is. I appreciate you even making that connection like that. That's pretty accurate.
Yep. All right, Coach. So what are some of your favorite professional development resources? Are you there?
I lost you there for a second, Coach. You still there?
Yeah. So what are some of your favorite professional development resources? Whether it's books, podcasts, articles, what are you diving into?
I'm a big podcast guy, Coach, especially while we're sitting here doing the programming that we do or the time we sometimes spend behind the computer. I'm a big podcast guy. Or when we're on the road and you're taking a big road trip, I love to get me a good one of those. And they kind of bounce around a lot of different ones between the own one that you have that I started on about a month and a half ago. And within that month, I think I've made it through 6 or 7 of your shows, Coach. So I'm going to slowly keep catching up.
Good.
On top of that, I love the Barbell Shrugged podcast. I think those guys are great. The Joe Cast, think that they do a great job. Believe it or not, I love me a little bit of the Joe Rogan podcast when he gets some of those different guys on, like the David Goggins and things. I think you can't go wrong listening to those.
Yeah.
There's a few other small ones out there, but kind of routinely through the week, those 4 are things I'm going to check each week and try to get one of those episodes just for a little bit of personal enjoyment and professional development from it.
Hey, I love Joe
Also,
Rogan
sorry
too.
to say one more. Oh, you do?
Yeah, just for
I don't
background
think you
noise
can go
more than
wrong
anything.
with it.
Yeah, put it on. It's entertaining.
Yep, and then with the FTS articles and things, and anything from Dr. Brian Mann, I believe a lot of his research I consider gold. So I really try to stay on top of the things that he's currently trying to put out.
Awesome, Coach. This is great. So, all right, this has been a great episode, Coach. I really appreciate you joining us. I know you're right in the middle of getting stuff going for the spring semester again, and are super busy. So let's wrap it up. We'll do four quick questions to finish. Sound good?
Absolutely.
All right. So, what is your favorite office snack?
Oh, that's easy for me. I'm a dried fruit guy. Dried mangoes, dried banana chips.
Nice. I think that's a first for the podcast. Dried fruit. It's good.
I don't know. Of the ones I listen to, everyone's picking those dang protein bars.
Yeah. Quest bars is a big one.
Yep.
All right. Favorite caffeine source if you're a caffeine guy?
Oh, absolutely. Got to give a shout out to my sister Taylor. She manages a Starbucks, so she is my single source for a high caffeine dose every month care package to get my coffee coming in.
Nice. That's a big time hookup there. That's huge.
It is, and to be specific, I like that dark Sumatra.
There you go. All right, you have 15 minutes to train for yourself. What are you doing?
Right away, I'm hooking up the TRX for sure. With a 15-minute window, I'm going to go into the TRX rows, TRX IYTs, TRX bicep curls, absolutely. Then I'll probably hop over and just hit either some dumbbell swings and some dumbbell double hammer curls and probably call it right after that.
Nice. I like it. All right, last one. Small school strength coach who's killing it and deserves a shout-out.
Yeah, I actually got to use three for you because I think all three deserve it. First one, if you haven't talked to him or you don't know him, his name is Ron Thompson at New Mexico Highlands University. I think you owe it to all the listeners that do listen to this to give that guy a call because he's an OG in our field. He is one of the originals that started a long time ago. He is a master strength coach. And to my knowledge, he's one of those guys that laid the foundation for guys like you and me to be able to come into this field at a younger age with high education and really hit the ground running with it. So I think he's an awesome resource.
Okay.
On top of that, two other ones really quick is my former assistant, Mel Hurl. She is a 10-time at the college level one day. And the third one is absolute awesome resource, Carissa Bell from Mississippi College. She's somebody that I've reached out to multiple times to talk about programming culture, some different things. She's a great resource and absolutely would be someone that people would enjoy listening to.
Awesome, Coach. I'm going to reach out to those three for sure. So, again, I really appreciate you coming on. This is great stuff, Coach, and good luck the rest of the year. We'll put all your contact info in the show notes, so if our listeners want to reach out to you, they know where to find you. And good luck, Coach. I really appreciate you coming on, and keep making the big time where you're at.
Absolutely, Coach. Thank you so much for putting this together. I appreciate it. I appreciate it as a listener and you finding a way to give people a platform and a voice that maybe don't have every financial resource in the world. I think is great for our profession, and I know I've enjoyed it, so thank you very much.
Appreciate it, Coach. Thanks.